So Blanca, if you could start the recording.
It's already coming in.
Ah, wonderful.
Okay, I think we're ready to start, so let me go to the recording.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the March meeting of the Miami Herbert Business School School Council. I appreciate all your engagement. We're going to get started right away with a motion to approve the agenda. Hopefully with a motion to approve the, there we are. Okay, Howie, seconded. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, so I'll just turn things right over to the Dean for his comments and updates. Paul?
Good morning, everybody. Great pleasure to see everybody here. Well, some updates on the, well, let me start with the university because that's probably the most important part of what's happening. And we just finished like the kind of the daily depressing session with the provost and deans to tell us how many grants have been cut, what other issues we're facing. Luckily today was not a bad day, just a couple of sub-awards were cut. So that's been the big discussion of what's happening in Washington, the federal influence on the universities. And that's basically what has been kind of affecting what we do. We have this kind of soft hiring situation, so that has been affecting us both on the staff and also on the faculty side as well. Anecdotally, one of our candidates wanted to come from Canada, decided not to join because of all this whole immigration issue. That was a hiring sustainability in together with the Resilience Institute, given that this area is not very well viewed these days. I mean, he decided to stay in Canada. So that has been affecting us practically with faculty. On the staff side, a few of the areas that are quite important to our strategic plan in terms of executive education, in terms of marketing, in terms of the executive DBA program, a few other staff positions are on pause. We have some challenges getting them through. Everything has to be approved by the provost, by HR at different levels. So everything has been going slower and takes a long while to get things moving. On the positive side, I mean, as far as we are concerned, we're moving along with our strategic plan. I know many of you are involved in the various committees around the 6 primary areas we're working on in terms of faculty research, our educational programs, in terms of career support. Again, with the career success has been another challenging area to hire in in some of the areas, in some of the positions we identified as important. For example, somebody to work with alumni, industry coaches, etc. On the positive side, specifically the position for the MBA program has been approved, so we're working on filling that in under the United Way Career Center. So hopefully that will help us at least, make some good progress with MBA students in terms of internships and jobs. That has been, an important area, as you know, for us. Well, everything else, executive education is still marching along. Some challenges because of the uncertainty. Some companies are slowing down, cutting down some of the executive education programs. We had a very lucrative program with the Army that's actually coming in April. They cut everything else around the country. Likely they're moving along with only us as the only place, but they still reduced it from, I guess it was 3 cohorts down to 2. They may do it virtually. So that has been affecting somewhat our our expectations for this year. But that's going quite strong. So overall, it's kind of an uncertain situation. Overall, some challenges in terms of moving along in our strategic priorities, but at least we're doing the very best. I guess the following week we're going to have the centennial celebration of the university, and we participate in different ways as well. So on April 8th, kind of just before the the major university celebration in the evening. Going to have the unveiling of the strategic plan. So all of you, the entire school, faculty, staff, alumni, we're going to have also, our advisory bodies attending as well. So we're going to have a nice celebration. I was hoping to have it under slightly better circumstances and kind of in a much more upbeat fashion than with this uncertainty and some of these, challenges I just described. But I guess it is a 5-year plan. This is hopefully, a small patch in the road, and will prevail and do well in terms of our overarching goals. Well, some kind of positive news. I mean, yesterday and today is a major conference, Emerge Americas, that I know some of you attended. We had a nice session on the social ideas challenges that we hosted with universities, business schools from mostly South America, and that was a very well attended session on the social impact of entrepreneurship. Well, I personally gave a keynote in the evening on AI and entrepreneurship, talk about what we do in the business school, especially in the entrepreneurship side with the aid of AI, with one of our recent hires, Zahir Dosak, who's been leading our entrepreneurship initiative. So that was well regarded, very well attended. So it was interesting because I kind of had a session just before the mayor, so it was kind of probably got some of the halo effects there, or at least the mayor gets some of my halo effects. But anyway, we can joke a little bit on that front. All right, so basically, I mean, this is kind of the a high-level update, and April 1st, I guess in a few days, I will send a more detailed update about the state of the school, the different areas across what is happening, the usual monthly email, so with more details there. So, I think I covered most of the important things I have here. So, if you have any questions or anything that I can provide more detail on anything I said or anything that you want to talk about, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Paul? Okay, thanks, Paul. Yeah, we certainly are living in strange times with all the sort of chaos in Washington. And we would hope that schools that are more entrepreneurial and can be self-sustaining would not be held back from pushing forward with revenue-generating programs. But it seems to be a little bit of a very strong reaction across the board, as opposed to looking a little more clearly at what can actually generate revenue. So.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, John, on that point, so I mentioned the last time that, we have a plan, at least we work out to have a presence in Brickell. I guess George here and Alok and the finance people helped quite a bit in terms of the MS in finance, the professional MBA. So actually, I think we got a very good deal, and so we're still but now it has to be approved by provost, president. It was already approved informally by the provost. Now we're waiting for the president. So all these layers of approval and add some delay, some uncertainty in the process. I'm still hopeful that this will move forward. We're going to have a good presence there. So as part of our, as you said, the revenue generating potential. On the positive side, just to finish on a positive side, we're going to have some really good news on our full-time MBA coming on April 8th. Kind of interestingly, exactly the date of our centennial, the U.S. News and World Report full-time MBA ranking. I cannot say the exact details because it's still embargoed until then, but very strong improvement and consistent with our priorities in terms of job placement and career success. So I guess I'll actually unveil it as part of the strategic plan unveiling and also mention this significant new ranking. Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, we'll turn things over to Linda for some updates about the Faculty Senate.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, kudos to our dean. I heard that his keynote session last night was one of the highlights of Emerge, and it was very, very well received. So that was super publicity for the school. A couple of other things the dean mentioned, that there's obviously a lot of attention right now at the university on how much we're going to get hit with federal cuts. The president met with the Senate on Wednesday, and just to give you some specific numbers, we're 13 million has been canceled, and that includes 22 federal awards. Most of the awards, by the way, are in the DEI area, transgender or gender identity as topics. So this is kind of, it's a moving ball. You know, every week we seem to hear more information, but as of right now, it's 22 awards, which really in the scheme of things is not as bad as many other universities are facing. A couple of other things. You should have received an email from Central that indicated that there will be a 3.25 merit increase pool. The president really believes in much more transparency in the whole salary process. And so that's why those numbers are coming out. But in addition, one of the things that's going to be different this year is that the department chairs will actually put their recommendations into Workday, and then the dean will go in, put his recommendations in. If they're different, then there'll be a dialogue between the chair and the dean. And that's because in some schools, those dialogues haven't occurred in the past. They've always really occurred in the business school, but in some schools they haven't. So it's a way, again, to increase transparency in the process. They are also going to have a separate pool for individuals who are promoted. The numbers that are being talked about right now is 10% for full professor promotions and 6% for associate. But those numbers still have to be finally approved by the board. They're numbers that have been used in the medical school for a number of years. So it looks like those will probably be where they fall out. A couple of other things. One of the things that's going before the Senate in April, when they have their last business meeting of the academic year, is a proposal to add a new category to the lecturer titles. Right now we have lecturer and senior lecturer titles. They're proposing that we add one called a distinguished lecturer. And that title would go to lecturers who have taught for many years, but have also really improved pedagogy, have done a lot of innovations in the pedagogical area. So I suspect that that'll go through without any problems at all. And then finally, the provost search on April 24th, we'll be meeting to go through about 100 resumes that have come in. We intend to narrow that group down, come up with a sample to put through Zoom interviews, and then we will be doing the formal interviewing, actually having candidates here during the month of May. So we're still on schedule. It's, you know, the plan is to have a candidate, you know, a final candidate for the job probably in June is the way it's looking. From what I've heard about the candidate pool, there are some really outstanding external candidates that have come in. So anyway, I think it's looking very good, very positive for all of us. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
So Linda, I'm curious, we're hoping the timing for a new provost would be starting in the summer?
I think that, you know, John, it's always negotiable. I mean, ideally, they would like someone to start in the summer, but if someone decided to start in January, that would probably be fine too. It just depends on the specific candidate. There have been a couple of sitting provosts who are very interested in the job, but they just don't feel that they can leave their universities right now because their universities are going through some pretty tough times, and they don't feel they can jump ship.
Other questions for Linda? Okay, thank you, Linda. We'll turn things over to TJ.
Hi, John. Thanks. I don't have much of an update. I think Paul already gave you. We are in the midst of recruiting, and we've been turned down by several candidates. We still have a couple in the hopper, so we are hoping we can close the deal, at least fill our allocated positions by the start of the next academic year. Accounting department actually came up with another idea of getting a visiting scholar to come in for a year. So it's a short-term commitment, but at least allows us to still recruit without going through a very lengthy or leveraged offer. But I'll keep you posted. I'm happy to answer any questions, but recruiting is very, very challenging this year.
Questions for DJ? Okay, thank you, DJ. So we'll go to Hari for some updates on graduate programs.
John, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm on the road today, so my connectivity seems to be a bit off. So quick few updates. I'm going to go off camera to preserve bandwidth, pardon me. So on the grad side, round three rather, we received a significant number of apps. We were up by about 40% over last year, so that's a huge positive sign. In terms of actual matriculations, we are at about the 60% mark at this time. This is the point that we reached on May 25th last year. So we're about a couple of months ahead of pace relative to last year. I'm calling it like this because the round times were different last year than they are. So we're just keeping pace in terms of enrollments relative to where we were on a day-to-day basis. The important things, the progress has not been uniform across some programs. So what we are trying to do now is work with the marketing department to generate additional leads for programs that are a bit lagging. So it's not uniformly that all programs are up 40%. So that's what we're trying to address at this point of time. We're also trying to figure out the right mix for various programs. So there are a lot of veterans in certain programs, very few in others. So there's a lot of class composition that we have to do as well. The other part that I wanted to let you all know is that on April 3rd, we will have an admitted students welcome. So this is those that have been admitted. Some of them have matriculated already. Some of them have not yet matriculated, and they're really looking for that last push, the last nudge to get across the finish line. It would be awesome for them to actually meet our faculty and talk to our faculty. So if you are available, please do make yourself available for our students to chat with you on the 3rd of April at 5 p.m. This will be an event in the breezeway. So if you can, please do stop by. Currently, we have 156 registrants for this event. So I'm expecting about 100 will actually show up on the day. So that should be a huge event. That'll be a positive conversion factor for us. As Paul alluded to, there's some good news potentially on the way on April 8th. That'd be a nice way for us to kick off our strategic plan and kick off our centennial celebrations as well. As he mentioned, we are not at liberty to actually tell you the exact numbers at this point, but I'm hoping if all stays the way it's supposed to, we'll have some good news there. That's really all I have. John, I wanted to address one question that several faculty have asked me. The provost recently sent an email about classes that may be impacted on the April 8th. We don't yet have clarity from the provost's office on what they expect us to do in terms of compensation for that potentially canceled class or how to address it. Before we come up with some policy on how to do it, we wanted to see what the university wanted to do. We're still talking to the provost's office. As soon as I get some clarity on that, I will share it with all of our faculty so that we know exactly how to approach it. Okay, happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Hari, and we're all getting very excited to hear the news and April 8th is perfect timing for that, so that's great. I do have a quick question. Your report indicates that the numbers are up in terms of applications and such. Could there be a situation where there may be a couple, maybe one or two sections added to different programs in the fall?
It is a possibility, but I'm not sure of it right now because of the international student portion, right? I have absolutely no idea how to project yield on international students this year. As Paul and DJ mentioned, faculty are somewhat second guessing the idea of coming to the US. So I can imagine students also, their value proposition might be impacted by the recent changes. So I want to be cautious in approaching this, not to create a section, then cancel it. So until end of June, it'd be hard for us to get clarity on this because that's when we'll know whether they got a visa or not. So we'll keep you posted through the summer as we go through this.
Thank you. Other questions for Hari? Okay, thanks again. And we'll turn to Alex, who's going to give us updates and comments related to our undergraduate programs. Alex. So I know he's not officially on the agenda, but we wanted to make that possibility. So.
He's here.
No, I know he's here, but
sorry,
Alex,
can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, it's spring break. I'm on child duty, this is why I'm muted, but I'm here. So
well,
no, there is no news on admissions. We are still through the funnel, and everything points toward we are going to make our set of 710 students that we were given by admission, but we are not yet done with the process, but everything looks that we're going to make it. We have more than 16,000 applicants. To put this in perspective, 5 years ago we have around 9,000 applicants in 2020. So the demand for us has increased a lot, but the number of slots that we have been given has moved up from around 600 to 700. So we expect also the profile of the students to keep increasing, but we don't have final numbers yet.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Alex? Okay, Alex, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can turn to our curriculum matters, and first we'll have the undergraduate. We have modification of prerequisites for Math 107, the prerequisite. Lan, I think is, oh yeah, there you are, is here. So maybe you could talk, if it makes sense to talk about the two of these together or one at a time, I'll leave it to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. Good morning. Yes, these two items can be discussed together because they are very related. So the first item is the update of the prerequisites for MAS 105, and the second one is the update prerequisites for MAS 110. Both updates are a result of the recent update of the math placement guide, which is followed by the mathematics department by our school. The new guide will become effective in fall 2025. For those of us who are familiar with math placement, the undergraduate students are placed into different levels of mathematics courses or MAS courses, currently based on 3 exams: the SAT, Math ACT, or ALEX exam. Starting from fall 2025, the exams will also include the AP pre-calculus exam. So that has a direct impact on 2 of our courses, MAS 105 and MAS 110. The university is starting to accept credits from the AP pre-calculus exams. For MAS 105, as the council probably remember, Hari and I presented the reactivation of this course, and we will start to offer MAS 105 in fall 2025. This course is designed to cover the same contents from Math 107, but we will tailor the delivery of the course toward the business students. In the new guide, the Math 107 would have prerequisites including score of 4 on the AP pre-calculus exam or score of 3 on AP calculus AB exam. So we are updating the prerequisites for MAS 105 correspondingly. The updated prerequisites will be the current prerequisites plus this new score based on the AP pre-calculus exam. So that's the first item. For the second item, we make corresponding updates based on the new math placement guide. For students who have completed Math 108, they can be enrolled in either MS 110 or Math 161. The new guide will give credits for Math 108 if the student has a score of 5 on the AP pre-calculus exam. So we are proposing to update the prerequisites for MS 110 by including the score of 5 on the AP pre-calculus exam. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Len? Okay, Len, thank you and your department colleagues for working on this, and we'll email you shortly after the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, we move to the graduate curricula.
Yes.
Hari, this is the calendar revision?
Yes.
You're going to speak on that? Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Ola is traveling, so I'm going to speak on behalf of Ola today. So a few months ago, I think we passed the schedule for the redesigned professional MBA program, where we had essentially the calendar offering 2 courses at a time for the PMBA students to be able to take. What we are trying to do is mirror the online MBA program to have the exact same structure. So on the proposal that Ola sent you, on the PDF document, you'll see 2 proposals. The second item is what I want to take first. What it does is there are several semesters in the current schedule where the student is taking several terms, I shouldn't say semester, several terms where the student is taking only 1 course. What we are now doing is offering them the option of taking an elective early, and by doing so, we are able to crunch down the length of the program. So this is the default length of the program. Now, for students who want to do this at a slower pace, the online MBA already offers a part-time track, so they can choose to do it at any time. But what this allows us to do is advertise a more aggressive completion time for those who have the time to do it. So that's why we are doing this. So the second part of the proposal, I think, is relatively straightforward in terms of my explanation. The first part of the proposal, so maybe I'll take questions on that first and then go to the first part, because the first part is a bit messy.
Just a quick question to clarify. This is not going to affect the number of credits for any of the courses. It's just calendar.
It's just calendar. There are several courses where there are several terms of the required course is just 1. There are some students who, let's say, are very good at accounting or very good at finance and find that course fairly easy. They can double up, take an elective as well that semester, and accelerate the progress towards degree. That's all we're doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions on number 2? Sorry.
In stereo. Okay. Yeah, please proceed to part 1.
So part 1 is a bit messy, so I'd like the council's help on figuring out how best to do it. Right? So what we want to be able to do is have the in-person program and the online program on the exact same calendar. For those of you who teach in the online program, you'll know that the online program, for instance, in January starts about a week or 10 days before the in-person program starts. Now, one of the rules that the registrar's office has is that a student cannot be taking courses on more than 1 calendar at a time. Now, I have no idea why they decided to have a separate online calendar. This is a calendar apparently that the rest of the university follows for online programs. And my understanding anecdotally is that at the time that online programs were created at the University of Miami, they wanted no mixing between online and in-person, and as a result, intentionally created separate calendars, right? Now, our view on this at this day, given the progress that we've made, is that we actually want flexibility for students to move from online to in-person to take an elective or other choices, right? So what we want to be able to do is create this calendar. Initially, the registrar's office told us that if you do this, then you will not be allowed to change the existing dates in the calendar. Usually there's about a 2-week gap between when the spring semester ends and the summer semester begins, and before the start of the fall and the end of the summer. And normally what we are able to do is create some exceptions where I can borrow 1 week from that gap and make sure that the schedules line up. Now, if there's only 12 weeks in summer and we have to do 2 terms there, essentially what that does is forces us to offer our 7-week classes in 6-week terms. Okay, is everyone confused enough? But so what we effectively thought initially that we were forced to do is actually create 2 versions of these online classes, one being a 7-week version and one being a 6-week version. And so our plan then was, with the next iteration of refreshers, work with faculty to create both a 7-week and a 6-week version for summer 2026 and beyond. Okay. Now, what I've later found out after some pushing back is that maybe the flexibility of borrowing into these gaps between terms and semesters might actually be available to us. So point 1 might become moot if they tell us that I can borrow 1 week from May and 1 week from August and essentially create a 14-week term in summer as well. So at this point, John, I don't know if I need the flexibility that is being sought in point number 1. We thought we needed it, but after some pushback, we think we can get around it. So how do I do this?
I think several of us can offer suggestions if needed, but if there is some uncertainty that this flexibility you sought will actually come through, then maybe it's better to go ahead with trying to get an official vote if it needs to accelerate to different places. So this way, we could have a vote on that, and potentially you could have the authorization of this step going forward if it's needed.
Okay, that'll work.
I'm open to other people's ideas as well. Okay, so that's certainly a good possibility.
Yeah, so I mean, one other possibility is, we received word from the registrar's office, but we haven't received confirmation from the financial aid office, right? So depending upon that, I can also send an email to all of you as soon as I hear from them. And if this can be done over email rather than wait for the next meeting, that can also be a possibility. I'll leave it to you guys to determine what the appropriate steps are, and let me know how you'd like to proceed with it.
So Hari, just for clarification on part 1, is you're seeking to get a proposal to have the 2 calendars aligned?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we've got that. I'm just curious, is the MBA calendar, the in-person going to the online, or is the online going to the in-person?
The online is going to the in-person.
Okay, I just wanted to, the proposal can still go forward, but I just was curious as to which one was.
Yeah, at this time we have fewer online programs and more in-person programs, so it made more sense to have the reverse switch.
Okay, and it likely will fit in better with faculty's schedule, say.
Yeah, you don't have to come back a week early from vacation to teach an online class if you're allocated to it. Yeah.
And Uzma?
Yeah, just clarification question. So this calendar alignment does not affect, because there was some conversation about credit shifts as well. So this does not affect that, correct?
No, it does not.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Hari on this proposal, either part 1 or part 2? Okay, thank you for that update. Report. Our next item, scrolling back up, here we go. Okay, so now we have the other matters, the revision of the bylaw being confirmed. Actually, Blanca, who was going to speak about this?
Linda.
Okay, Linda. Hi, Linda. All right, if it's okay, why don't we just table that for a second to go? Oh, no, great, Linda's here. All right. We're on the item number 11, the revision of the bylaw.
She's mute.
Oh, you're on mute.
She's continuing.
Linda, you're muted.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of me because it didn't come out in our, in our meeting agenda. So just refresh my memory on which bylaw that is, because I've written 3 for the Senate.
Oh, sure. No, you've done so much. It's quite a bit. All right, so this is the revision of the bylaw. It's bylaw number 4, the B5. This is about committee on reappointment, promotion, and award of tenure and honorific titles. And the rationale was that the bylaw and the title of the committee is being revised to conform with section C10.4.1 of the faculty manual. So it seems like an adjustment for alignment.
This is basically just an adjustment. It's not a new bylaw at all. A couple of years ago, one of the problems that was occurring in some schools is that deans were appointing endowed chairs without any input from the faculty. So faculty learned about an endowed chair when they returned from summer vacation or whatever. So one of the things we did is we wrote up a bylaw that basically clarified what the appointment process would be. And obviously it needs to have faculty input. So with our particular P&T committee description, there really was nothing in it that indicated that once a department goes through the process of voting on a potential chair or even any honorific title, could be distinguished professor title, it needs to go to a next level for review. And we could set up a separate committee for that. I mean, the council could, decide to come up with a committee that consists of all endowed chairs to review it, but that's another layer. The easiest thing to do is to simply have the P&T committee review the appointment the same way they review all of our promotion and tenure cases. And so that's what's being done here. This is consistent with what's done in other schools as well. So it's really just a matter of revising it so it's consistent with that particular section of the manual, which I chaired a committee for a few years back.
Linda, in this one, it would be like to actually change the title from Committee for Promotion and Tenure to also add reappointment, promotion, award of tenure, and honorific titles.
Yes, because that's consistent with the way it's labeled in the faculty manual.
Yes, I got all your notes, and it's basically everything that was in red just to redo it, and it's consistent with the manual.
Right. So it's nothing new, it's just consistency with the manual section. That's it.
I have a question. Does it change anything now? Does it give additional, it seems to be giving the PNT committee the review of additional positions that it didn't originally have. And so was it that we just didn't have any second tier review of those outside of the department and now we will have them? Or
Right.
is
The P&T committee reviews all reappointments, midpoint reappointments, all reappointments with respect to educator, faculty, obviously tenure and promotion. So they're doing all the reviews now. The one thing that wasn't specified was that they also need to review any sort of honorific titles and endowed chairs. If you look at the manual section on this, it basically states that it should go through the normal P&T process. And so it should be going through our P&T committee. And in fact, I think that with the most recent chairs, that the school appointed, I believe it did go through the P&T committee. It just hasn't been specified. Our bylaws obviously have been around for many decades, and some of them, probably need updating. This just happened to be one that, caught my attention because we've been talking about endowed chairs. Actually, Terry Skander has been talking about the review process for endowed chairs. And when I went back to the manual, I noticed we're really not as consistent as we should be.
so this is seeking to capture endowed chairs, and would it also, I guess, like now senior lecturer and distinguished lecturer should be get that title?
They go through that committee now.
Okay. So it's just a title change.
And it's a cleanup. It's housekeeping.
Yeah.
It makes
Bill,
sense to
good
me. I sit on P&T, just as Howie. It's more work for us, but having just gone through some of the processes, we've picked up on, the committee picked up on one endowed chair that we were sort of questioning and why that person had that title. So this makes sense. Will there be standards set that the P&T committee will have when it reviews these?
You know, that's something, I mean, we talk about that every year in terms of, are there school-wide standards for promotion, for tenure, for educator, faculty? So this is just another one of those areas. Do we want to develop standards for endowed chairs? I mean, that's up to the faculty, and I think that a proposal has to come forward to the council on that.
Linda, how is it done in other schools? So you mentioned that one possibility could be that all endowed chairs review proposals for future endowed chairs, or we could have the P&T committee do it. How is it done across other schools? Do you know?
It's primarily done through P&T. I don't know of any schools now that are using endowed chairs. When my committee and I developed this bylaw, our thinking was that maybe what should be done is we should have the endowed chairs in a school review who was being chosen for an endowed chair. But we didn't feel that it was our right to constrain schools to do that. And there was a lot of discussion. Some people on my committee basically felt that, why set up another committee? You know, you have a P&T committee as it is that consists of full professors, hopefully people that individuals in the school really look up to in terms of evaluating scholarship. So why have another layer?
And just to clarify, so our vote really isn't, I mean, it's not a vote, I guess, per se, it's just a vote to get this to the regular faculty, because we don't have the authority to change the bylaws. So we're just saying, send this to the regular faculty.
Well, your vote is, you can send it with a recommendation, or you can send it with basically, you know, your recommendation is to not approve. That's your position. But it does have to go to the regular faculty. And since the bylaw changed, we need 2/3 of the regular faculty to approve it. Otherwise, it just stays inconsistent with the manual.
But I'm a little confused. It seems like there is not a bylaw change, because as you said, that in the manual and all that, it says we'll go through the regular process. So it's a title change. That's where I'm a little confused. Is it a title change or is it a law change?
It's a title change, but we're also inserting in the body the endowed chairs, honorific titles, you know, and even with a title change, you really need to have the regular faculty vote on it.
No, right, I understand that, but I think when we make the recommendation, it should be pretty clear that what is it that we are recommending. So it's not really that we're recommending a new process.
Right.
The process is technically on the books. It's just not being followed because of these inconsistencies, correct?
That's correct. That's exactly right.
Yes.
So the faculty manual. Sorry, Blanca.
No, I was saying that this is just like in the rationale to put that this is a revision of the bylaw to be consistent with the faculty manual. And then you explain and you highlight it, and then that's basically it.
Right.
Yeah, so what I was going to say, something can be in the faculty manual, so that's technically on the books. But if our bylaws are inconsistent with that, we need to make changes to our bylaws to be consistent with the manual, or we need to say we don't want to be consistent with the manual, and then engage whatever that would engage whatever other problems. But the proposal is to be consistent with the manual, and it will be in bylaws.
Just to be clear, as a school, we are consistent with the manual. We're following, you know, what we should be doing in terms of these processes. We just haven't written them down. You know, we just haven't revised that section in, I don't know how many years. 20 years, Blanca? It's been a long time.
No, that section hasn't been revised in a very long time.
Right. So that's big.
What we did was the integrity committee and things like that Caroline overlooks to committees.
Right. but
Yeah.
this section is very old.
But I think that this summer, and I had mentioned this to John and I think to other people, we should go through the bylaws and really, go through them and update them. I mean, I don't want any more work, but I really think that it needs to be done.
Yeah, and absolutely codifying changes that have been made that haven't been incorporated, and then also making sure we're consistent with the faculty manual.
Yeah,
So
I'm happy to help with that if you want. I mean, I'm pretty familiar with most of what's in the manual, and I can go through them quickly and just point out some things. And that way you could send them all to faculty saying, these are updates.
Right. Okay, so we'll discuss that as well. Other questions on this item? Linda, thank you very much for the background and your work on this. You're our resident expert in terms of our bylaws and the faculty manual and all of these things. So, thank you.
One small thing, just as a process. I mean, definitely, let's have another layer of kind of faculty approval. But because, my explicit goal is to get more chairs, and we had like two this year, and hopefully we're gonna get more. Because we're dealing with donors, some of them are very bold trustees, and they really want to see these chairs kind of allocated quickly. So whatever we do, let's at least make the process kind of expedient, so at least we can move forward in case we have somebody who want to allocate the chair, because we're kind of also accountable to external constituents as well, who want them to be happy and feel that their chair was allocated properly, quickly, and so they can give us hopefully more chairs. So thanks.
Great. On that point, I believe Steve or Howie, the P&T committee can meet virtually if need be, right? If there was an issue, have you guys? I don't know if you guys used Zoom before, just to make sure that you have that capability.
You're on mute. I don't think we met. No, I think we always meet in person. That doesn't mean we can't meet by Zoom, but we've always met in person.
Yeah, that's
another. So that's one other thing to consider with especially if there's a case for expediency.
That's another reason why we need to review it, because I know that in the past, Michelle and others have asked me, can when I do a Zoom and I go as per the bylaw? Not really, but but that's something that I don't see why not.
Sure. So we'll consider that as well. I mean, obviously, 20 years ago, the technology wasn't there for virtual meetings. We have that now. So,
the bylaw says that they cannot meet virtually. How would the bylaw even know about that?
Because back then we didn't have the capabilities.
No, but how could the bylaw even foresee that would even have been an option? So why is it in the bylaw that they cannot meet?
I don't know, but it's there. And the same thing with the proxy, voting by proxy.
Yeah, that's
remember before Zoom, you had to vote in person to vote. You couldn't proxy vote, or you couldn't mail in.
Yeah, but
and we had to note attendance, abstentions, and everything.
But Zoom meeting is in person, really. It's not, you're there. It's not proxy. It's different from proxy. So to me, it makes no sense that to read that as you cannot have it on Zoom.
Yeah, but remember, those were written a very long time ago.
Yeah, what you have to do is request to the Senate. If this body votes that voting can be done by Zoom, you just make a request to the Senate. That's it. Then you're covered. Then it can be done by Zoom. I mean, most schools are doing their voting and their deliberations, online. So, obviously, this is, again, it's a section of the manual that needs to be updated and hasn't been yet. I mean, there are some security issues with voting by Zoom. So if you have a P&T meeting and you're deliberating on candidates by Zoom, you could have a P&T candidate sitting behind someone at that meeting, listening to deliberations. So you have to think about how you're going to control those confidential discussions. But obviously that can be done.
I guess Uzma, to answer your direct question, it says physical presence shall be required, whatever that means.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and I think the real rationale to investigate is what we want going forward. So, okay. Other questions or comments for item number 11? Again, thank you, Linda, for your work on this. We can move to our last item on the agenda, which is the date for the regular faculty meeting. Blanca, what we normally do is have this set for the reading day, which is April 29th. We have in the past had this at noon and just have sort of a lunch meeting, but I believe there's something else going on in the auditorium, so we were going to do this we decided to do it at 10 o'clock rather than earlier so that faculty members who have to drop their kids off to school or whatever would certainly be able to attend on this week.
Yeah, there's a chairs meeting and there's other things happening that day. And the other announcement that I have from the floor that I haven't sent anything out because I have to meet internally, but just so you guys keep it, we're planning to do the award ceremony a little bit different this year. And we're looking at a surprise for you guys, but it's gonna be May 10th. So keep that date, and it's gonna be like faculty, staff, and families.
Okay, so
It's gonna be going out fairly soon because I just got information from the venue. So it's gonna go out, but just keep that date in mind, and it's gonna be a great surprise for everyone.
great. So maybe a save the date or whatever can
Yes.
go out as well. Thank you for that announcement. Just to clarify, are there any comments or concerns related to item number 12, the date of the regular faculty meeting at the time? We're all good? Okay. Any other matters or announcements? Okay, so I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and we'll just go to executive session to finish our business. Have a great weekend.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Edwin. Have a wonderful weekend. Nice to see you. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Blanca, you can stop the recording. Alex, thank you. Have a good weekend.
Recording stopped.
Blanca, I'm not sure if Alex had to walk away, but if you want to, you can help him exit.
Yeah, I'll get them out.
It's interesting that what difference choice of words can do. Help him exit versus get him out.
I tried.
It was very smooth. I had to appreciate it. It was very well done.
Thank you. Okay, great job, everybody. We have a fairly short meeting. There is one item to discuss, but let's go through whatever we need to vote on and just get those things done. We have the modification of prerequisites. Blanca, are these notifications? Do we have to vote on this? This is item 8 and 9.
I am not sure because they're dealing also with the math department, but I think at the very least, before I get clarification, we should vote just in case.
Okay, so is there a motion to, we could go these together unless someone objects. Is there a motion to approve these two modifications? Okay, seconded. All those in favor? Okay, wonderful. So we're there. How about this proposal to revise the academic calendar? And I think Uzma, I asked the question earlier and you asked it again. This doesn't change the credits. That was one of the big things I wanted to ensure. So is there a motion we'll have the motion and then we can have further discussion. So motion seconded. Further discussion on this item? Okay, we'll call it to a vote then. All those in favor? Okay, so that passes. Then we move to the, pardon? Okay, so we move to the bylaw change. Is there a motion to approve this? Seconded? Okay. The one thing I want to say is I am happy something like this is going through because I don't think that, especially when John was leaving, there didn't seem to be a lot of faculty involvement, or things kind of really got rammed through. And when you give that many honorific titles or chairs, if we had done some international search, and this is independent of any comment on the people who earned them or got them with the votes, but if you do an international search, this is a great way to, bring in people, because once you have these titles out, and if they're to people that are here, which may be deserved, it does restrict a powerful tool for recruiting. So I'm glad to see that we're making it more explicit. My own opinion is I would be glad to see us making this more explicit, that the committee would have to look at this. Alyssa?
Yeah, I don't have a problem sending this. I'm just wondering whether now's a good time, since we're amending the very same bylaw, to either add physical presence, like where physical presence shall be required and can constitute physical presence, via Zoom or something like that, or some thing that captures all programs like Zoom, or whether we just want to leave it there. I mean, it seems to be a concern if we're going to have donors to get chairs passed quickly, if there can't be a quorum for 3 months, that's going to be a real issue. So I don't know if now is a good time, like, that we're proposing this, and now we're having to send chairs through this, and seems to be some expediency problem, whether we could do both together.
Yeah, maybe we can change that language to attendance, and then attendance could be either virtual or physical. It doesn't specify attendance as what that attendance would be.
Alyssa, absolutely, great idea to bring this up now. What I'd like to get is, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but Howie or Steve, you serve on this committee. Do you have some concerns about going to Zoom? Are there any thoughts you want to add? If you think that we should get a quick word from the committee, but we do have it in front of us. What are your thoughts? Why don't we go with Howie first? We'll go alphabetical.
As much as I'd like to do it through Zoom, I think being physically present and being able to see each other and read body language, etc., is very important. So I probably would prefer to keep it in person.
And I have a question, Howie. I think I agree that adds value. I wonder if for chairs it should be the same thing versus, promotion and tenure, where we're traditionally accustomed to being in person and for valid reasons. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out.
I don't quite understand your question, Melissa. I was answering a question about should P&T be in person or by Zoom, and then you were asking what?
So the proposal seems to add what wasn't otherwise there, is that the P&T committee reviews the appointment of chairs and the appointment now, I guess, of senior lecturers and distinguished lecturers, in addition to our clinical faculty and our tenure track faculty.
We have nothing to do with chairs.
It's endowed chairs.
Endowed chairs.
Endowed chairs. Sorry, I meant endowed chairs.
To my recollection, I don't think we've ever had an endowed chair come before the P&T committee.
Right, the proposal is being amended so that you do have that power. And then Paul's concern was that because these things need to happen quickly and they have to be in person, that he doesn't want the process delayed if the committee can't. That's the issue, because that's being added now would be added to the P&T committee's responsibilities.
Yeah, well, it does take a long time to get a committee meeting. So maybe I don't know.
Just initial thoughts, Steve.
Yeah, having set some of those meetings, it's always been very challenging to get the quorum in the room. Unless it's for the time that is promotion and tenure, that ahead of time when you need to turn it in, and then you start from months before to schedule the meeting. But let's say if all of a sudden John Messias gave $5 million for an endowed chair in management. Hey John.
Think about it.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned you. So let's say, and they want to do it within 60 days, whatever. The donors also understand on the process they have to go through takes time too, through development, through everything, you know, it's like, so they do take time too, but I don't see anything wrong with the online voting, but the thing, I agree with Howie, you see the body language, you see the people, you see, you know,
Okay, before we take other questions, I'd like Steve, as a member who served on the committee, to just give his initial thoughts.
I agree with Howie. You know, having been on Zoom meetings versus in-person meetings, there's a difference. There's no doubt there's a big difference. I think with my advisory, by person, same concept in terms of that. Having said that, I understand expedited, but this is also where without sort of some deep discussion, I sometimes wonder about some of the points that they made. Again, Howie and I were on maybe this past go around. I don't know if you remember, Howie, but there was a person who had an honorary chair of, I don't know what the actual title was, and we looked at his resume, and then we looked at his CV, and then we looked at the CV of somebody else in the department coming up who did not have that, and we'll say, wait a second, why does that person have it and this other person does? So there's something that goes on with these as well that I don't quite understand as well. So there's some ambiguity to all of this. The in-person definitely makes a difference. But I think it should be under very strict parameters in terms of what types of history makes the right person.
The only thing that I can think, Alyssa, is that maybe, you know, if there's for endowed chairs, okay, if there's a particular rush, okay, we could have Zoom meetings, you know, on, you know, for exceptions, for endowed chairs. I wouldn't open it up to anything else, otherwise there'll be a million exceptions. But for something like an endowed chair that's time bound, I guess we could do it by Zoom, you know.
I don't have.
George, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to say, I don't think we're saying that the KP committee will become Zoom. I think we're just saying, let's give the option. And then the committee itself can kind of decide when they want to exercise the option.
Because I think
so I think it's
thing here is,
it's good to have the option.
Yeah, I think as Steve was saying, there have been inconsistencies and sometimes you look at people's records and you wonder, like, why does this person have it and this person doesn't? And sometimes that has occurred just because there has been no review. So we want to make sure that
I'd like to
gets
I'm
involved.
sorry, you cut out. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm just saying that I think this is, for me, it's more important that there is a proper review process to avoid the issue that Steve was saying, that sometimes you have these weird inconsistencies and you're like, why this person has a chair and why this person doesn't? And that's because it has, you know, in the past sometimes just made because of will of a person. So we need to have this process in place. And if the process makes it very difficult, then there is more incentive for people to just do these kind of things. So I think I would recommend the same thing, that for these kind of chairs, honorific chairs, if there is a need for urgency, the committee, rather than there's no meeting of the committee and there's no review process, that we have an expedited review process over Zoom.
I'd like to, I've been thinking about this and I'd like to suggest something. Obviously, the concern is for the proper review. And an endowed chair is probably something we should not rush. I understand that, with all respect, Paul's, wanting to make sure that we don't create a layer or a process that's going to make things even harder. Typically, getting donations is a pretty long process. It takes a lot to kind of go through. So I actually, in thinking about it now, I don't really envision a situation where there's going to have to be such a rushed vote. I also recognize that as a school council, we have sometimes authorized an electronic vote, where vice deans have requested an electronic vote because they're they want to rush something through a process. And once you create a process, if you don't allow for that sort of exception, which could become fairly frequent, it could potentially create problems. So my suggestion is that we maybe just vote on the proposal the way it is, even though I do think it was important for us to consider this other option together. Vote on it the way it is, and then what could happen is maybe the P&T committee could set a meeting for towards the end of the spring semester, and then if they don't need to have it, they can cancel it. But most people, if you're coming as an endowed chair, you have to give your previous school notice, and there's a time when these things go through. So if it's hard to schedule the P&T committee, maybe they schedule a meeting in spring that could deal with any of this stuff that could potentially come up. And if nothing is on the agenda, they could just cancel that meeting. But this way it could keep the integrity of having the in-person and frankly not rush things or not set a precedent that could potentially rush things. So that's my thought.
I guess another question to Howie and Steve, and it seems like the answer is yes, but just to confirm, do you all want the added responsibility of reviewing like senior lectures, now what will be distinguished lectures and endowed chairs?
I think they do that already.
Yeah, we do that already in terms of promotion from lecturer to senior lecturer and stuff like that. So yeah, those are the territory like this.
Emmanuel?
Yeah, sorry. So we discussed this actually here in the county. It'll pass, but I'm probably going to abstain from the vote. The issues that got brought up here was just for the endowed chair. You will have people on a P&T that will be full professors but not endowed chairs. And there's a argument that could create a conflict of interest, right? So that was something that was raised here with the group. Some people were super in favor of this, given the added review process. Others were most definitely.
Are you saying that as I understand it, the only thing we're talking about the change for is maybe speeding up the endowed chair process? This does not apply to anything else.
Yes, but I think the argument was there's no conflict for anything else, but there is for the endowed chair. Usually full professors vote on promotions up to their current rank. This is now technically someone voting for a rank that is above.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking Linda that what is the process that is followed elsewhere, because
just for the endowed
chair. A named chair is not a rank.
Right.
It's just an award that's given.
Right. It has nothing to do with rank.
There's no rank involved with a named chair. Somebody's decided.
An honorific title.
It's voted on by the. I mean, it's a different title, but it's not a rank.
Chair, I have a question on these endowed chairs, because my understanding was that endowed chairs come with an endowment, and I know in the past there have been people who have received money, and then there are chairs that are not given money, even though there has been an endowment coming into the school. Do we know how these work? Because I don't at all anymore.
Okay, yeah, John Quelch was big on removing some of the endowments, and I'm not quite sure how that was administered and if it was for everybody or sequenced. This is a very good question, but this is not just, and with all respect, it's not related to this. I want to really try to keep this tight. We have a proposal in front of us to make sure that the language is consistent with the faculty manual and that the P&T committee will be the one to review the honorific titles. There was a subsequent sort of attempt to look at, should we change the format of the endowed chair approval process to include Zoom? So those are sort of two issues. And then I think it's absolutely worth looking into how are we treating the endowed chairs, and is this no longer endowed? It's just an honorific title, and that's something that we could look at
No, I
as
think
well.
there's a slight distinction, and that's why I asked. If it is completely honorific, the donor may not have much of a say in who they want. Sometimes the donors have the say. So, for example, we had a donor who wanted a chair in a particular area or something like that. So then we might say that suppose we had an internal candidate who's working in that area, but somebody else who, in terms of scholarship, might be better, but less of a fit. So the reason I'm asking these things is because they can make a difference. If it's just purely honorific, then it's honorific. The donor may not have a say in it. But if the donor has a say in it, then it's a different story. So again, I'm just a little confused about if everything follows the same process, if everything should follow the same process. Yes.
Elizabeth, it's my understanding for a long time, a donor has 0 say in who gets the chair.
Yeah, and are you proposing a change to this bylaw?
No, I'm just.
No, either of you. I'm just trying to understand, because we have a motion to vote on the approval of this bylaw, and I'm happy to have whatever other discussions we need to do, but just for the sake of time, I want to make sure that we're addressing this issue. So we have the motion on the floor to vote on approving this bylaw, which would to change the bylaw to be consistent with the mission, and the P&T committee would be reviewing honorific titles as well as the other things that they review.
But again, these are not just honorific titles, right? So that's what I'm saying, that these are also, can we put that language to cover everything, or is it just honorific?
So are you asking, is an endowed chair an honorific title?
No.
Is that your question?
Well, I guess my question is, can an endowed chair be without an endowment? And in that case, is there a difference between endowed chair? Because my understanding was endowed chairs come with endowments, and honorific chairs are different than endowed chairs. Or are they all the same? That's the question.
All right, so then the question is, are endowed chairs different than honorific title? Yes. So Blanca, you know, is an endowed chair an honorific title?
Yes.
An honor can have an award. An honor doesn't have to be without an award. So I think they're included in this language of honorific title.
Elizabeth, I know why this happened. Okay, when John Quelch was dean, he wanted to get, I think it was 12 endowed chairs. All right, so he was willing to have an endowed chair that had no money attached to it, in order to meet the president's goal of 100 new endowed chairs, or whatever it was. So that was the game he was playing.
Centennial chairs. Some of
I don't know how kosher it was.
It's cheaper.
So, we're all comfortable. Oh, sorry, George, go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Howie said, that my impression has always been that honorific titles include the endowed chairs, and there's always money, and it was only this change that John Quelch tried to do, kind of like having an honorific without money, but that's not the standard. The standard is there has to be an endowment.
Correct.
Right, but
Whatever
I
money
think it goes
goes.
back to Emmanuel's point that just because you're paid more, you don't get any additional rights or privileges. Ergo, if you're a full professor, that's the highest rank. You don't, like an endowed chair doesn't outrank another full professor in any way. The vote doesn't count for anything. They don't get to do anything else. They just get paid more.
Basically, what they do is, based on the endowment, whatever rolls off, that's the money that they get that goes towards their research, towards whatever they're doing. From the endowment.
So if we feel the need, we can investigate how endowed chairs are being the money and who's that. We could look into that potentially. But if we're all in agreement that an endowed chair is under the broad category of honorific titles, I think we've settled that issue. And what we're looking at is are we going to change the bylaws so that the P&T committee explicitly have the review of the reappointments related to the honorific title under their purview?
I hate to add an additional wrinkle, and it may be that the P&T committee was already reviewing senior lecturers, the promotion from lecturer to senior lecturer, but in our bylaws, in section H of 1 for definitions, the process explicitly excludes, so the process for promotion for an eligible lecturer to senior lecturer shall take place as follows. The department chair will prepare a candidate file consisting of all materials to substantiate such promotion, ensuring that the voting faculty have at least a week to review the file. The chair will then call and preside over a meeting of the voting faculty to discuss the case, at the end of which voting shall take place in accordance to the faculty manual. In the case of departments with fewer than 5 faculty eligible to vote, the dean shall appoint voting faculty from other departments who are among MBS, it should have been MHBS, most renowned teachers. The chair shall then transmit the vote of the regular faculty with his or her recommendation to the dean for consideration and approval. There's no P&T committee involvement. I mean, maybe it's been happening, but it's not in our current bylaw. So if we want to change that bylaw, we also need to change this bylaw to change the procedure for senior lecturers. And I guess we should amend it in such a way, if we agree that that's what we want to do, to also include, distinguished lecturers or whatever category.
The distinguished lectures has not been approved by the Senate yet.
I agree. So I don't know if we want to caveat in language that captures whatever the new title, if a new title comes in.
That's why I was suggesting that this summer we need to work on the bylaws because they're outdated.
Right, so now we would have conflicting bylaws though, if we approve this.
Yeah, Alyssa, there's a great catch, Alyssa, here. Now the question is, when Linda was talking about this, I don't know if there was an assumption on her committee that honorific titles would also include distinguished lecturer, or
she said that though.
She did, right? So the question is, are we going? Is it going to be sort of going forward, or do we need to provide a little bit of language that clarifies that these honorific titles relate to lecturers as well as endowed chairs? So to make sure that it's all encompassing.
Yeah, I don't really have, but despite me talking so much, I don't really have strong feelings about this all, but I do think, either we've been doing things against the bylaws by already reviewing senior lectures, and maybe we should be reviewing the designation of senior lectures. I don't have strong feelings. I just think we probably need to send this back to get some additional clarity, and then this also needs to be part of the proposal if we want to change it such that senior lectures and whatever in the future may happen with distinguished lecturers goes through P&T. Does P&T want all this extra work? They've been given this extra work, it seems, but the bylaws does not give it to them.
Right.
In the past, all right, and when these issues come up, it's always someone from your department.
Oh, is it?
Okay, that actually proposes the new language. Okay, because I don't know if the rest of us are really competent to do it. So I'm not trying to dump work on you, but you're the only one here who's competent, okay, to do that. So
I have no issue with drafting the language. I'm just curious, is this something that we want? Because it does go against our current bylaw.
Yeah, here's my suggestion.
You should probably come up with a proposal. Okay.
I have a suggestion. Again, great catch, Alyssa. I think what's going on here is Linda was with the committee and they worked on this, and I think based on what Linda said, is that they believe honorific title includes a lot of this stuff. My suggestion would be this, that we can sort of send it back to just confirm that do they want to put or need to put endowed chairs, this lecturers, this whatever, to clarify the who that's being considered, and that it's going to be all encompassing on the part of the P&T, right? That seems to be what was the idea or behind this, but there may be some ambiguity in terms of just having honorific titles. So my suggestion is this.
I think it's that, John, but then if Linda's answer is yes, includes everything, then that's not the only bylaw we need to change.
Okay, so it's not just B5. There's another bylaw that, okay. All right, so why don't we, but even still, even if we vote to approve this, and there may be another, so there's another bylaw that deals with the lecturers.
If we vote to approve this, and this goes through, then we will have a conflict in the bylaws.
Yes, so I think what Elizabeth is saying is that by approving this, we are actually we're going to stand in conflict with another bylaw, and if as a committee we can do that. So I guess so maybe what one suggestion could be, and then maybe we can vote on this, separately by email or not, because I agree that these things need to be reviewed by the P&T committee, period. And again, there was this concern that, and if you don't have that many endowed chairs in the school, for example, to begin with, then you may not have quorum, whatnot. So I think the way it is right now is fine, and we need to have a review process. But I also see Alyssa's point that, look, but we have different laws here. So can we approve an amendment which is inconsistent with our current bylaws, which doesn't seem like the right thing for me to do? So maybe we send this back and we ask for it to come back with revision on the other law as well, so we can then approve both of them together.
Yeah,
because then we won't be inconsistent with anything, and everything would be getting consistent.
And to be honest, I mean, if there's a situation where a senior lecturer gets turned down by the P&T, they can use this and sue the school, right?
Yes, I see that what Alyssa is saying is that we are technically approving something which is against our own bylaws, and that we shouldn't be doing. So I think if we send it back and get the other bylaw changed as well, we can then approve both of them together.
Yeah, I have no problem sending it back. I was suggesting this, but I want us to be clear. So Alyssa, you brought up another amendment that relates just to lecturers. Is that correct?
Correct. It's in the definitions. It's the first thing. It's on page 1. It's Roman numeral 1, letter H, and it goes on to the second page, but it explains the process for promotion from lecturer to senior lecturer, and nowhere in that process is the P&T committee.
Okay, so what I want us to be clear about, if we approve this, I personally do not think this would be inconsistent with the other thing, because all it is it's saying reappointment for lecturers is different than reappointment for tenure track, and honorific titles. However, if your sentiment is to ask this to go back because we need clarity on honorific titles, and whether or not we want to include the lecturers, and then that would precipitate the need to change the amendment that Alyssa brought to our attention, that's fine.
I'm only saying that because Linda said it included it, and Howie and Steve have said they've been doing it, so it seems to be like an understanding. There's some confusion here. We need to clarify what this means. And like I said, I don't really have a dog in the fight. I don't care how it goes. I just don't want an inconsistency in the bylaw.
Right. I mean, now we have an inconsistency between our bylaws and the faculty manual, though, but whatever. So
but it's not an inconsistency. It's an inconsistency in how we deal with it as a school. That's perfectly fine. Schools don't always follow, what the general thing.
Fair enough. All right, so I think we already had the sentiment to send it back because we're not sure if endowed chairs are covered under honorific titles.
No. So that part is clear to me now. The only confusion that's happening is not on part of the endowed chairs. And maybe it's best to have that clarity here. I think the process with endowed chairs and honorific titles should go through the P&T committee. That, at least I have no issues with. The problem that Alyssa is raising is that our lecturers and everything also included in that honorific titles, which is what Linda seemed to have suggested. If it's not, then we have no problem with this bylaw. If they are, as the suggestions seem to be, and as our practice seems to be, that all these lecturers are being reviewed by our P&T, which currently the process says they may be, but the process doesn't say that they should be. We may still review them. But if they're all included in the honorific titles and everything, then we have an inconsistency. If we can just get that clarity, it could be two things. One would be that no, they are not part of this. Then we are okay, we can just approve this. But
we might have to change the language to clarify though.
Yeah,
because it
exactly.
says promotions, and that is technically, as Howie and Steve point out,
it is. So that's why I think that the other bylaw needs to have that clarity, that also goes through P&T, and then we'd be totally consistent.
Okay. Again, I'm comfortable with this as it is, but if people want to send it back and request that this committee also sort of synchronize the other amendment that deals with how the promotion or reappointment of the lecturers and others are going to be included, I'm okay with that. So is that what we want to do?
Or they could simply send us a clarification, for example, saying that, no, those are not part of honorific titles. They're reviewed, but they're not honorific.
Well,
because I don't want to vote on something and later come up that this body voted on something that is against another bylaw. So if they send us that clarification and that's our understanding that that's different, I'm happy to vote.
I'm not. I want that clarification in the actual bylaws, because who's going to remember what they told us in 5 years when this issue comes up and none of us are on school council?
Fair enough.
So I'm happy with if we just note to them that it doesn't say all reappointments, which would supersede this, a reappointment of tenure track. So there is some ambiguity about this. So we want to send this back and give them, in the email that we send it back to them, we want to highlight the bylaw that you noted, Alyssa, that could potentially be problematic for this.
Or what they could alternatively do is, it says honorific title is the issue that we're all having issues with. And they use it in caps as if it was a defined term. It's not a defined term in our bylaw definition. Is it a defined term in the university faculty manual?
Great. All right. So then are we voting to send this back to them? And then we'll clarify what we're going to say when we send it back. Is that what people want to do? Table this? The motion is on the floor. Are we going to table this? All those in favor of tabling, raise your hands. Does that mean more clarification? Steve and Howie, are you abstaining? Steve? Okay. All right. So we're tabling the issue. Alyssa, no good deed goes unpunished. Could you help draft the message to just pointing out that we would like greater clarity on the honorific title, and also please note that there's this bylaw that could potentially be confusing because it's a separate reappointment process mentioned. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just curious. The reason I said I didn't vote yet on tabling is I'm curious if the faculty manual already solves our problem. If they define honorific titles, we adopt in our bylaws undefined terms in the regular faculty manual. So if the regular that could solve our issue.
Part of that could be an open question that we send back to them, and then the language would maybe change to honorific titles as defined by the faculty manual, or we
might not even have to say anything, John. It might, because we already in our bylaws adopt what the faculty manual has on terms. We might be sending something back to them that we don't need. I just don't know without looking at the faculty manual.
Blanca, do you have a copy of the faculty manual?
I do.
It's online.
Let's see. Honorific titles.
E10.
Horrific. I mean honorific. Go ahead.
Honorific. It's not defined in the faculty.
Okay. So I think we need to send it back, right? So are you adding your vote?
I am.
Okay, so the issue is tabled, and Alyssa, would you, excellent job, excellent catch. Would you please work with Blanca on the language for the email that can go back to Linda and her committee for this? Thank you, I really appreciate that.
Lisa, you may want to look also, instead of honorific, the committee, and this is what's the name in the school, in the faculty senate is, Committee on Reappointment, Promotion, Award of Tenure, and Honorific Title.
Committee, and it's in the faculty manual?
Supposed to be, because this was so that we match it with the faculty manual.
If you go to,
It's a C10.4.
go to C10, there's a footnote 227, and if you click on the document that's attached with it, it's a letter from President Frank. He lays out a bunch of stuff related to honorific titles, and he sent it to Linda.
Okay. So then maybe it does define it, and I didn't know why I didn't pull it up on a control F.
Yeah, section C10.4.1 or something like that, and then the footnote.
It seems like my PDF, you know what, I'll probably have to just download it.
This is like I'll put it in the chat for her. This is like the main piece from the letter about honorifics, right there. That's not in the faculty manual, though. That's like an addendum to the faculty manual, so you have to click on that to see it.
Okay.
Well, it says an endowed chair or other honorific titles, so it's clearly considered both. That's under that umbrella.
By the way, another honorific title is when you retire, not everyone.
Emeritus.
Emeritus.
Does the PNT committee currently vote on emeritus?
No.
It seems, well, you would now if we keep honorific title, right?
I always thought that, no, we never had, that I know of.
So this would,
yeah,
So that's the
under the new
whole-
bylaw, you would be now voting on that as well.
It's the biggest promotion.
It is.
I know for college it came from the provost's office.
What came from the provost's office?
It's his emeritus,
Oh.
because he reported to the provost.
Oh, if he's an emeritus dean, that might be different. I don't know.
In my experience, when, let's say I decided to retire, okay, and I want to strike a deal, all right, and my retirement deal, one of the things that I talked to the provost about is, I want an emeritus title, and the provost decides yes or no. That's how I believe it works. I think that's how it worked with Renee, because, you know, it's just between you and the provost. Are they gonna give you a lot back? They're never say they're emeritus, and they're really not. That's the board.
I think the process is that you request it to the dean, and then the dean brings it up through the provost, and then if approved, that goes as part of your letter.
Okay, so just for the sake of this meeting, some of the things we are discussing are the potential issues of ambiguity that would be in the email that Alyssa and Blanca would send back to the committee, correct? Because we voted on what we needed to vote on.
Well, it seems now there is some definition of honorific. So I guess in addition, I don't want to draft language that we don't agree with, right? Like I can clarify, but I don't really care how this vote goes. So I don't want to be proposing something and be the one drafting language that I'm not like necessarily espousing or I'm not against either.
Okay, so I'm sorry if I didn't phrase this right. We have tabled this issue.
Okay.
We need to explain why we tabled the issue. So all you would be doing is saying these were potential areas of uncertainty or ambiguity, and then her committee has to come back with the language that we would vote on.
Okay, perfect.
Okay? You may want to mention the Zoom issue, but that's separate. That's separate from that. Okay. All right. Yeah, that was a complicated issue. It was a good discussion. All right, so at this point, Emmanuel, I don't know if you got the chat that I sent. Did you want to just discuss an issue before we end our exec session?
Yes. So we didn't put this on the agenda, but it's been brought up by a few people in my department. So I asked John to bring it up in executive session. A few people are a bit worried and want to get some clarification from level 2 about minimum class sizes. Apparently, the chairs voted on minimum class size of 52 or something like that. So the worry is now the rooms are chock full. We don't know if they're now going to open or not open another section if there's less than sort of 50 enrolled. And then there's also, it just leads to broader issues of just classroom experience for the students here, right? That are paying top dollar for what we're seeing as sort of smaller class sizes. So we just want, people were specifically asked for sort of some clarification on what exactly is going on at MHBS and the University of Miami more broadly, and whether, what our peer schools are in terms of class size and things like that. Because it's becoming all and the policy is just to cram them in even more some classes possible to teach.
What does it even mean, minimum class size of 52? Like, if there are 30 enrolled, it's going to be canceled? What does it mean?
That I have no clue. This is just...
Or does that mean a capacity of 52? It can't be minimum size. So
yes, sorry. It's basically...
You mean capacity?
Yes, the quote I heard was fill the classes. Like, fill the classroom. We can't fill the classroom, not get another... They won't be opening another sections, maybe not at another time or anything like that.
That's been the practice for a while.
Yeah, that changes on the room that you're assigned, because we only have, and by the way, it's 51, we only have 7 classrooms that can accommodate that.
There is another issue with respect to online. Some of you may recall a few years ago we had a discussion about this. Tim Birch brought some data. Henrik was actually in charge of graduate programs at the time, and there was a commitment on the recorded session that the online classes would not exceed 30 students. Anne, who was then moved in charge of the online learning, and that it's creeped up a bit to, I think, 32 or something like that. I'm not sure. So the class sizes should be a discussion or a consideration for online as well as in person. And I think Emmanuel's point that there's the capacity of the classroom and maximization of revenue, but there's also, we're a private school, and what do we want to offer? And what's what I'm happy.
I've had experiences where they physically, I know it says 51, but I'm not sure whoever put the sign on the door with 51 students has put Herman Miller chairs next to each other in the back row. I mean, we had students sitting on the floor. I don't know, at some point it's probably a fire hazard.
Yes.
So this is the policy, this is what they're pushing, instead of just splitting it up and having 2 sections of 30 or something like that, or 2 sections of 20 or something like that for a 40-person enrolled class.
Emmanuel, but remember when the dean was going around talking to everybody in their office? Well, he was talking to one of the members of the accounting department, who I won't name, and if we have 52 students in a classroom, because there's 52 seats, if one of those students drops out because they feel the class is not personalized enough, we lose so much money, okay? It pays to break it up into 2 sections. And the dean, I think, immediately following that conversation, went up to Harry and said, break it into 2 sections. You lose 2 students, it's even worse. Okay, so the idea of the class, that's not a profit maximization scheme. That's a profit minimization scheme.
Yeah. So as experienced teachers and insightful educators, we have a lot of ideas about this. In terms of process, does the council think we should get a committee to look into this, or what process sort of step would you like to entertain?
I think we should ask the dean what his feelings on it are. What class shots should be. I think that's where we should start.
But does that technically lead to an end?
Well,
what I mean is, if we have, you know, do we want to have a process where we get the faculty perspective and then have the conversation, or, you know, because sometimes you see what I'm getting at, right?
No, all I'm saying is, yeah, you know, if we all knew what the dean's perspective on it was, you know, not have classes that are filled to capacity, break it out into 2 sections, if that's, you know, better. That's the first thing I want to know. How does the dean feel about it? I'm not saying it's a rule or whatever. I just want to know how he feels about it. And then I think we could have a more informed discussion.
So how about this? How about, since Hari is has been dean of programs and is currently in charge of graduate programs, maybe asking him a little more informally to get this sense might be a good step?
I really think it has to come from the top down. It's such an enormous issue. I mean, I know when I teach a class that has, you know, 52 students, it's an entirely different experience than a class that has, you know, 26 students. And I think we all know that, and we know what the difference is, and it makes a huge difference to the student and parents. So I think we need to know what the dean thinks.
Other ideas or perspectives on how we should, whether or not, or if or how we should entertain this?
I would say if the school council members want to take it to their department for an informal discussion. I mean, if it's just a few people here and there's not a big overwhelming sentiment, maybe don't go forward. But if this is something and these worries are shared by a decent chunk of our faculty, then I think, yeah, it's worth putting something together, going and speaking to the dean's office and seeing what's going on.
George, quickly, you said that this policy has been approved by the chairs, or did I get that wrong?
I think a manual.
Yes,
manual. Yes.
Someone, although I didn't hear this from my chairs, I don't even know if it's true. Someone told me there was a unanimous vote with the chairs this week, where they agreed that yes, we pack the classes.
I see.
So I don't know what binding policy that is, or if it's just an agreement that look, when we're doing the teaching matrices and staffing things, it's going to be on maximization before there's another section allowed.
What I was asking was if we bring it up with our departments, should we assume that our chair knows this or not?
Yes, I would say you can definitely assume that.
Okay. Sorry, I gotta run. We have a seminar. I don't want to be.
Any other thoughts or comments on this? Okay. Thanks, Emmanuel, for bringing this up. And any other issues for the next session? Okay, I'm happy to entertain a motion to adjourn. Is it seconded? Wow, everybody's in favor. That's fantastic. Okay, have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye. Blanca, if you want to stay. So Alyssa, you're going to work with